The next women achiever is a speaker, an advocate, and a peacemonger. Her ongoing work as advocate for empathy has brought her as a guest speaker at schools across Southern California, churches, and TEDx on Health's Prize United Nations, local newspaper, as well as guest spots on local televisions, radios, podcasts, and a feature in the Forbes magazine, Muslims of America, and the cover story in Toastmasters magazine. An achiever who has co-authored with Hedy Lee's Sexy with No Boundaries. She has presented keynotes, workshops, and talks for various organizations in the US, Middle East, and India. And she is also co-founder of the Awake, Align, Act, an online support group to help people navigate through personal challenges. Okay,
Excuse me, ma'am,
yes, somebody had muted me. So I will repeat again what I said about the speaker. The speaker is also a co-founder of Awake, Align, Act, an online support group to help people navigate through personal challenges through psychotherapeutic coping skills and spiritual wisdom. And personally, for me, this speaker is a scintillating, assertive, radiant, adorable, and a humble human being whom I have met recently. Put your hands together to welcome the next achiever, Sara Khan. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Sudha, for the gracious introduction. And a special thank you to the delightful and distinguished Toastmaster Murali Manmohar for inviting me to share an inspiring message to empower women and the 30% of the men that are there today. So guys, I've got your back, okay? So, right now it is 4:50 in the morning in Los Angeles, California. So a very good morning to you all. Now, the reason I am up at this ungodly hour is because I am strongly drawn to your theme, Women's Achievers. Our first African-American First Lady, Michelle Obama, says that there is no limit as to what we as women can accomplish. Amen to that. Now, on that note, I am truly honored and I'm humbled to be amongst great women achievers today, like our illustrious and multi-talented Master of Ceremonies, Sudha Balaji. Now, the Wonder Woman of India, who continues to break glass ceilings, Dr. Kiran Bedi, acclaimed and admired leader, Margaret Page, and last but not least, renowned and respected educator, Dr. Shanta Maria, whose inspiring words we eagerly await. Guys, I just realized I'm surrounded by superheroes. Now, would you guys like to hear a story? So, once upon a time, there was a king who visited his garden and saw withering trees, bushes, and flowers. Now, the oak tree was dying because it couldn't be as tall as a pine. The pine tree was falling down because it couldn't produce fruit like a grapevine. The grapevine was ailing because it couldn't blossom like a rose. But soon the king found a single plant, fresh and in full bloom. So he approached the plant and he asked, "All of the trees and flowers here are withering, yet you've blossomed. How? Why?" So the plant replied, "If you wanted to grow an oak, grapes, or rose, you would have planted them. But you chose me. I cannot be anything else. So I'm just doing my best while being true to who I am. While being true to who I am." Now, being true to ourselves is often a challenge, right? I'm sometimes asked to share my truth in strange ways. For example, back in 2014, my friend Heidi Lee, who's an international lingerie designer, she approached me at a Toastmasters club meeting and she said, Sarah, I'm writing a book called Sexy with No Boundaries, and I'd love for you to be one of the co-authors and contribute a chapter. Now, for those of you who don't know, I am a former fashion designer of haute couture. So, Heidi and I, we always admired each other's sense of style. So I said to Heidi, I'm a hijabi Muslim woman who covers herself from head to toe. Are you sure you want me to author a book called Sexy with No Boundaries? But then she explained the essence of the book. So basically, it's about letting go of the dictionary definition of sexy, which is being sexually attractive, provocative, or seductive, and also the old school representation of sexy, a skinny, blonde, blue-eyed Barbie doll, and instead embracing what Heidi calls sexy in the new millennium, which is aligning your physical beauty with your inner qualities. Now, she said, sexy should have no boundaries. It should be race, gender, size, and colorblind. And then she said, Sarah, as a hijabi Muslim woman who covers herself from head to toe, being true to yourself and being true to your morals and your values, how would you define sexy? Now, I was the only hijabi Muslim contributor to the book, and I knew that my piece would be quite unusual, to say the least. But, I really liked how Heidi defined sexy, like aligning your physical beauty with your inner qualities. So I wrote a chapter for the book, and then I did a TV interview, and then I did some articles, and then I did some more interviews and podcasts. And basically, this is what I said. When you look at commercials or fashion magazines or music videos today, what does it take to sell a garment, to sell a car or a pack of cigarettes? Our capitalist consumer culture has led to the commodification of a woman's body. Women and young girls often feel pressured to look a certain way in order to fit in, right? For example, keeping up with the ever-changing fashion trends or the ever-changing plastic surgery trends. Beauty and fashion products are all marketed in a way to convince us that they will enhance our physical appearance because you're worth it, as the L'Oreal ads proclaim. Now, in a society where a woman's worth is reduced to her physical beauty or her sex appeal, what could be more empowering than choosing to be intellectualized and choosing to be individualized rather than just sexualized? What could be more empowering than choosing modesty over nudity? After all, nudity is more titillation than sexual liberation. Feminism at its core is about fighting for our freedom of choice. And a hijabi Muslim feminist like myself, we fight for our freedom to conceal rather than reveal. Because to us, modesty is sexy. Because that is true to who we are. Nobel Peace Prize winner and the mother of Yemen revolution, Tawakkul Kamran, she was once asked about hijab by a journalist who said that it was incompatible with her level of education. And this is how she replied. Man in the early times was almost naked. As his intellect evolved, he started wearing clothes. So what I'm wearing today represents the highest level of thought and civilization that man has achieved. It's the removal of clothes that is regressive. Now, do you think it was easy for someone like me to share my truth in a book or on TV or in articles? Someone like me who once was told after I got off stage, after delivering a speech, I'm so tempted to rip that piece of cloth off your head. Why do you let yourself be oppressed like this? Or, I'm shocked that your husband lets you step out of the house. Now, since the stereotypes about hijabi women as being oppressed are so widespread, fitting in may seem like the only way to avoid being ostracized and marginalized, isn't it? And yet, in trying to ensure that everyone likes you, you risk sacrificing your uniqueness and your radiance. In other words, you lose yourself to please the crowd. So rather than fitting in, I chose to belong to myself by being vulnerable, by being authentic, and by choosing courage in a culture of conformity. So I'm sure, at some point in our lives, we've all fallen into the trap of fitting in, isn't it? Of being a crowd pleaser. That's because we live in a culture where we are constantly assessing, acclimating, and adjusting in order to fit in. After all, we are social species and we are neurobiologically hardwired to connect. But in our genuine desire to belong, to always be liked by everyone, to never disappoint anyone, sometimes we desperately or even unconsciously start seeking others' acceptance, their appreciation and approval. We try to fit in whenever, wherever, or however possible. We choose the career we're supposed to. We marry the person we're supposed to. We say yes to everything we're supposed to, yet we keep wishing that we could only be accepted just the way we are. Now, in trying to fit in, we become experts in molding ourselves into how others want us to be and what others want us to do. And in this process, we lose our authenticity and we become like chameleons, constantly changing colors to match others' expectations of us. One of my favorite social scientists and psychological researchers, Dr. Brené Brown, as she once said, true belonging doesn't require you to change who you are. It requires you to be who you are. It's about believing in yourself so deeply that you're not afraid to share your most authentic self to the world. Now, when I think of someone who epitomizes true belonging, legendary poet and civil rights activist Maya Angelou comes to mind. Now, in an interview with Bill Moyers on national television back in 1973, Maya said, "You are only free when you belong no place. You belong every place, no place at all. The price is high, but the reward is great." So Moyers asked, "Are you saying that you belong no place and to no one?" To which Maya replied, "I belong to Maya, and I like her very much." So you see, guys, when we belong to ourselves first, and when we connect with others from that place of authenticity, then we automatically belong every place, whether we fit in or not, because we are no longer afraid to stand alone. Now, I made my choice to be true to myself by defining what sexy means to a hijabi Muslim feminist. And I urge you to make a choice. Belong to yourself first. Don't try to force yourself in someone else's skin. Stop trying to look outside of yourself to see if you're slim enough, smart enough, social enough, or even sexy enough. You have your own unique personality. You have your own unique perspectives and preferences. You have your own unique voice. You deserve to be heard and you deserve to be seen because you matter. Now, Beyoncé, the music legend, so poignantly says, We need to reshape our own perception of how we view ourselves. We have to step up as women and take charge. So stop putting everyone else before you. Only when you realize that you matter just as much as everyone else will you experience that powerful sense of true belonging that Maya Angelou embodied. It takes courage to belong to yourself, to show up in your own skin. So guys, even though it's much easier to follow the crowd, to tell people what they want to hear and to be how they want us to be, I urge you to choose courage over conformity. Be like the plant in the king's garden that says, I cannot be like anything else. I'm doing the best I can while being true to who I am. And as for me, I belong to Sara, and I like her very much. Thank you so much, everyone, and over to you, Sudha.
Thanks a lot, Sara. Anand made me feel young and you are making me feel sexy. Yes, I am young and sexy. So let us all think that way and belong to what we are. So again, a request to all the members, please start typing in your questions to the panelists, both to the event moderator and also to the Sergeant at Arms. So please send in your personal questions to them, and they will take it at the end of the next speech.
So because of the time limit, first we will take it to the message which has been told by our MC. Madam Toastmaster DTM Margaret Page, this is a question to you from Toastmaster Ankur Yadav. There are two pencils behind your background, which are giving an impression of a ladder, which has been told by our MC also. I want to hear from you, what is the purpose of selecting this as your background? This is from Toastmaster Ankur Yadav.
Thank you for that question. I appreciate that. To me, it represents that you have to do the work, as Dr. James had already expressed. You have to take action, you have to do the work. And those are two pencils there that describe the work, to me, represent work, represent learning. And when you do, you climb up the ladder. Although I don't necessarily think that, is it really a ladder, or is it more circles of influence, really? So you have to ask yourself that. Is it a ladder that we're all climbing up, or is it just more circles of influence, and that we have attained a position where we can influence more people and help them along the way and help them make a difference in the world? So, but that's what it represents to me. Action, learning, will get you further along the road to success.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. We let Rashmi Raghav ask a question for our Sara Khan, our advocate.
Yes, sir. I will ask. Sara, there is a question. Please share your thought process when you tackle any problem.
Oh, how interesting. Hello, Rashmi. Can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Because guess what? My mic is just on right now. My mic was off all along, Rashmi. The wire. So this is what happens. When you talk about failures and success, when you have a lot of boys at home, sometimes they unplug everything. And you find out after you're done with your speech. So if I sound sexier than usual, it's because my mic is on now. So how do you, what was it about a problem?
Your thought process when you tackle any problem.
My thought process when I tackle any problem, actually, Rashmi, it reminds me of a psychotherapeutic coping skill that I learned while I was in therapy.
Can we request others, please mute yourself?
I'm going to let them finish their conversation and then continue. Okay.
Yes.
So it's actually, regarding problems, basically what I was taught in acceptance and commitment-based psychotherapy is problems arise when you create your life as a problem to be solved. So there's situations in life, so there's always situations in life because, there's ebbs and flows in life. But if we turn it into a problem when we are mentally constantly ruminating about it, or when we feel like we cannot handle it or any of that, or when we just get overwhelmed by stuff, that's when it becomes a problem. Otherwise, it's a situation like any other situation. And if you think about every single thing that you've done, on a daily basis, you wake up, you get this done, you get that done, something happens, you fix it, you do that. So you're able to deal with situations on a day-to-day basis, 24 hours a day, then why may turn it into a problem? Once we start labeling, once we start putting those labels, then all of a sudden everything becomes too hard for us. And then our mind doesn't work. So I loved it when in psychotherapy, when I learned that problems arise when you create your life as a problem to be solved. So always regard things as situations that come up, and you know how to take care of situations because you do that all the time. So that's my answer, Rashmi. I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you very much. Now this question goes to my loving sister, and I think it is addressed to you, DTM Shanta. Madam, in this competitive world, how to get rid of the people who pull our legs and who are jealous if we are working hard and being better?
I think this answer is very simple. Ignore them. That's the best thing. When you think, I can just recall that story. There was a race and people had to this, I think it was frogs. Was it frogs, a rat, what I read? They had to jump and climb over the treetop. And there are a lot of frogs around. And when these frogs started climbing, the frogs from down always said, oh, you can't do it. You can't reach it. You can't do it. And they give up when they go on top, half the way, and they come down. But this frog, the last one, when he went up, he looked down, everybody was screaming and shouting and doing all that. But he went and reached on top. You know why? This frog was deaf. He was deaf. And because he was deaf, he thought all of them over there encouraging him. So the best thing, it's a world full of challenge and competitions, and you cannot go and hide in the corner. You can't get under the carpet, keeping yourself away from everything because you need to face the world. So the best thing is ignore them. Keep doing what you think you want to do. That's the best solution to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. May I request Toastmaster Rashmi Raghav, please go through a question which is in your WhatsApp.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. This is a question to Margaret Page. How you become so sincere in the life, and at what point of life phase? And I would like to add on one more thing, ma'am. When you realize that your vocal variety, your pause, your pace is very soothing and very calming to audience. So is it from childhood, or at certain point of life you trained yourself, or what was the behind it? Over to you, ma'am.
I can answer it very quickly. Toastmasters.
Yeah. Oh. Great. Thank you, ma'am. There is one more question from Shashank to you. He is asking to you, how do you balance Toastmaster and your official life with your personal life?
How do I balance it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. I don't watch television. I don't get too involved in social media. I, have limitations on all those things. And I get up at 5 a.m. in the morning and I do what these other women have indicated. I meditate, I do yoga, I do my physical activity. If you do not keep yourself physically fit, it's very difficult for you to become at your peak or to step into your full potential. So you have to take your full rounded self. You have to be continually learning, as indicated before. All those attributes, you have to take care of yourself, and only then can you achieve some kind of balance, but it's about creating standards for yourselves and not necessarily goals, but standards. This is who I am. As Sarah had indicated, become who you are and have those kind of standards for yourself. And then you can achieve what it is you want. You have to ask the question, what difference do I want to make in the world? And then who do I have to become in order to make that difference in the world? And that will always be taking care of yourself and stepping into your full potential. Then you can balance those things yourself and what it is where you want to make a difference. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Now the question goes to Sarah Khan, and it is from our VPPR, the in charge of this event, Sana Fatima. As a woman, the biggest obstacle is at times from the people closest to you. How do we decide on listening to your loved ones and listening to your inner self? Like a table topics, I'm repeating the question.
Yes.
As a woman, the biggest obstacle is at times from the people closest to you. How do we decide on listening to your loved ones and listening to your inner self? Toastmaster Sana Fatima.
Jazakumullah khair for the question, Sister Sana Fatima. Very interesting question. So I'm hoping that this is not, my husband won't see this. So I'm going to answer that question. So how do you do it is, something, I got a scholarship to one of the best improv comedy schools in the world, UCB, to take a course. And over there, we learned something called a yes and exercise. I don't know if people know about it. I can't see faces. But basically, when somebody says something, this is what I do, whether it's with family members or as an activist advocate or as an interfaith speaker, when someone says and gives an opinion or shares something that's contrary to yours or that you don't agree with or you don't believe in, you say yes. That means you're acknowledging their perspective as their truth. Right? And you're giving them the respect by listening to them, and then you share your perspective. So what that does is that it not only makes the person feel respected and heard, but it also makes them more receptive to your perspective. So what I do is, no matter what my family members have to say, I am extremely respectful because, our truth is as self-evident, their truth is as self-evident to them as ours is to us, right? And this is regardless of whether it's relationships or whether it's advocacy or activism or what have you, right? So we have to acknowledge it. Whatever it is, we have to acknowledge it as their perspective, their truth, their opinion, and also give them the benefit of the doubt that whatever they're saying, maybe it comes from a good intention. Perhaps it's not executed the right way in the best of words, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt that must be a good intention, and just be respectful to them. And if they really feel like we did consider their perspective and then we respectfully shares ours, in my personal experience, it's worked more times than it hasn't. So it's worked a lot of times. So this is the only suggestion that I'd give. Join improv comedy. So just use a yes and approach to communication. We often use a no but approach. So yes and can have that it can create miracles as far as connecting with anybody and getting your point across. I hope that helps, Sister Fatima.
Thank you. I'm going to ask this question again to my ever-loving sister, DTM Shanta Maria. When you are working towards achieving your goals, what was that thing which helped you to be committed? As many times it happens that we feel that we are being distracted.
Ma'am, please unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Have you heard the question clearly?
Yes, I think I heard it, but I don't mind hearing it again.
Great. When you are working towards achieving your goals, what was that thing which helped you to be committed as many times it happens that we feel that we are being distracted.
Well, this kind of a situation comes in everybody's life, right? It is very common in everybody's life, whether you are a homemaker or you are a professional or anything. There's always this challenge that comes in. So every time a challenge was there in my personal life, I just went into that meditation that I was talking about, tranquilizing myself and thinking. That did help me, no doubt at all. And as Toastmaster Margaret Page said, yes, I wake up at 3:30 in the morning for my meditation. It has become a practice now. And, I could go back to bed by 5 for an hour, bed in the sense nap, a short nap after my meditation time. And I think this meditation gives you the energy, gives you answers to so many things. The energy that you get at this time is amazing. You need to experience. You ask your questions, throw the question to the cosmos. You get the answers from them. So this way, it helped me several times to overcome my challenges, and then listen to your inner voice always. That will give you the right answers. Yes, you have a lot of people around you. Talk to them, but then the decision making should be yours. Listen to yourself, because you are the one in the shoes. You will know where your shoe is biting you, and you will be able to give a solution to that. There are hundreds of solutions, but choosing the right and the wise solution is most important. And that's the person who is in the problem only, are facing the challenge, only can do. So it is different to each and every individual. I cannot do something for Toastmaster Margaret Page or Sarah Khan or Rashmi. They will have to choose. I can give suggestions. I can try to give possible solutions, but she's the one who knows what is right for her. So I think that is how I was able to move on from one challenge to the other challenge. And I'm very proud that I failed several times, because these failures, they were my stepping stone to really move on to my next, or move on to the next step of what I could do. And I never turned back. I was always for moving forward. Now, I'm born to turn and move back. I'm born to move forward like everybody else is. And then there's a stage when you have to give back. And that is the stage. I always love in serving. And my great inspiration are my 5,600 students in my school, and my 300 teachers around me, and my family and my immediate friends, and that lovely brother of mine, Murli Ananda. So these are the people around me who inspire me every second to do what I am. The human being, they are the best. And they are the energy. They are the power.
There's a question to you only, Dr. Shanta.
Yes.
This is from Hanovi, and it is related to the same subject what you are talking. We women tend to be emotional in adverse situation and difficulties. How to control and overcome it?
Okay, that's a lovely question. I disagree with her saying that we women, it's all, even men. Murli, aren't you emotional?
Oh, I am.
Yes. As a human being, when we are born, we all have these emotions. If we don't have emotions, we are stones. We are rocks. So everybody has these emotions. And when you get emotional, let it out. Why do you control it? Let it out. Let it flow. If you think you can do it in front of your family, do it. If you think you can let it out in front of friends, do it. If you think you can't let it out in front of anybody, go to the seaside, go to the shower, let out your emotion. It will move. But you keep it inside you, it will never die. You can never come out of it. You need to come out of things, whether it's a happy, sign emotion. If it's not a very happy one, you just need to, throw out the tears. Do it. If you think, yes, I'm so happy, I'm excited, do it. You need to hug somebody, do it. You need to laugh it, enjoy it. Emotions are for it to be expressed. Emotions are to be shared. Don't keep it in you. Share it.
Thank you. We have a question which was sent for Dr. Kiran Bedi. As she is not there, we will ask Sara Khan, how would you tackle this question? Our Rashmi will ask this question to Sara Khan.
Okay, so Sara, question is this: what kind of challenges and downs you faced as a woman during your career building, and what message would you share with us? What kind of challenges and downs you faced as a woman during your career building, and what message would you share with us?
So that question is for Kiran Bedi, and now it comes to me. Thank you, Rashmi.
Over to you.
Actually, before I answer your question, Rashmi, I have to say one thing, Murali. You told Kiran Bedi that I don't know her. Oh my goodness, Murali, and that's recorded and that's on YouTube now. And it's like saying to somebody in India telling everybody that I don't know who Barack Obama is because I'm in India. Murali, you got to fix that. Yeah. So
bravo, Sara, bravo. You speak this now.
This is also being sent to her, this recording.
Oh, this is being sent. Please send it to her and tell her that I know her, and perhaps not as much as Indians do, but she is a phenomenal lady. And thank you, Murali. I'm so sorry, Rashmi. Could you repeat that question?
Yes, I will. Sara, I will. The question is, what kind of challenges and downs you faced as a woman during your career building, and what message would you share with us?
I'm willing to share any and every message, as that takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable. So, I always try to be as authentic, as vulnerable as possible. I faced a lot because perhaps not as much as others, because I can't compare myself. But, as a hijabi Muslim woman, speaking about religion and politics and social justice issues, especially post 9/11, after I came out of intensive therapy. And as many of you guys know, I was the worst patient in the hospital there. So, after I came out, and to try to be a peacemonger, which is, you're trying to build bridges of understanding between communities, right? Through empathy. It's not that easy because, many people, their only source of information is the news, right? And depending on what they watch. So I used to have people, when I used to speak at churches and synagogues or even schools, sometimes people in the audience, and this was their genuine concern. People would ask me something like, why are all Muslims terrorists? Because every time I turn on the news, I see, every terrorist is a Muslim. Now, that is their reality. I can't negate that. There's no point being defensive, because that is the truth. So, for something like that, what you have to do is realize that, don't start from a place of being defensive. Start from a place of accepting their truth and then trying to explain to them in a way that's relatable to them. Now, what I had noticed is when I was becoming an advocate and activist, I started to notice that there were people who had a platform, and what they would do is they would start quoting their scriptures, to try to tell people, no, that's not what Islam is. In the Quran, it says that. In the Quran, it says that. So what I started to do is I started to, as a communicator and a fellow Toastmaster, I started to tell people that we need to, when we communicate with your audience, you have to make sure that what you're sharing with them is relatable to them. They can connect with you. You're quoting things from the scriptures. They don't care. Say some, quote some place that they can connect with you. They can relate to it. So, when somebody had mentioned that in front of a few hundred people, that all Muslims are terrorists, because I see it in the news. So basically what I said was, there's a famous newscaster. So I used, that person was talking about the news. So I said, there's a famous newscaster by the name Nicholas Kristof. And he once said that the media only reports the planes that crash, not the planes that take off safely. So if all you knew about planes was from the media, then you'd assume every single plane crashes. So the media only reports the 0.0002% of Muslims who wrongfully commit terrorist acts in the name of their religion. So if all you knew about Muslims was through the media, then you would assume that every Muslim is either a terrorist or a terrorist sympathizer. So what we need to do is we need to take a chance to get to know those on the opposite ends of our ideological spectrum. You know, we need to break bread with strangers. As Brené Brown says, move in, you know, because people are hard to hate close up. So, you know, there's a lot of times that I faced challenges, if you'd say, in that perspective. But it has to, whatever we share, whatever we say to people, it has to come from a place of love. You know, it has to come from a place of understanding, irrespective of where they belong in the ideological spectrum, right? Because otherwise there's nothing. It's only reflecting each other's hate and vitriol and anger and what have you. And that doesn't help, you know, that doesn't help resolve anything. Now, I have hundreds of such examples, but that would be another keynote. So I hope just this much one is okay.
Thank you. Due to time constraint, this will be the last question. It will be for none other than International President-elect, Her Royal Highness, Toastmaster, Distinguished Toastmaster, Margaret Page. This is the question from Toastmaster Deepika. How to keep yourself motivated when the initial excitement fades off? I have this problem and it would be great to learn from you how to avoid it. Again, table topics, repetition. From Toastmaster Deepika, question to Margaret Page, how to keep yourself motivated when the initial excitement fades off? I have this problem and it would be great to learn from you how to avoid it. It's like in the beginning of the year or just 2 days before the year, you have a great plan for the next year. And in the very first week itself, all your plan, goal for the following year or that new year fades off. Over to you.
Thank you. That's a great question. And I'm struggling here to figure out which sort of answer that I want to give. But it really does take, in order to accomplish something, it takes skill and motivation. And when you step into something, at first you have a lot of motivation, you don't have the skill. Later on you have the skill, but maybe not as much motivation. And so how do you keep going? Well, at a certain point when you look around and the needs are so great, it's other people that really become the drivers. When you come to that point in your life, where it's not just about building yourself, as Dr. James meant, the giving back. And when you see the giving back and that it's bouncing off, and those people, the needs are so great for leadership out there and to make a difference. And you're watching and observing, and then that bounces back and you give more. And it's just that passion for serving others that will keep you motivated. But as we've all said before, unless you're continuing to learn, continuing to keep yourself fit, continuing to build your spiritual portion of yourself, then the motivation can begin to wane. So first, lead yourself. Lead yourself, build your own strengths up, your own learning, your own motive, and that will continue to build your motivation, is when you build yourself and continue to see the difference that you are making in other people's lives. And that can be such a huge motivator to keep you going, keep you strong. Thank you for the question.
Thank you very much, madam. With this, I thank all the 4 keynote speakers,